Well, Tiger fans, just the one change this week to the lineup with Luke Traynor coming back in and Steely Green going out, even though he wasn't used last week, which was still very, very interesting. But Steely will get his chance to play at VFL level, no doubt. But good to see Luke Traynor back in after the week off. I guess what we weren't really sure of was how bad or how annoying the hip issue was. I guess we'd all suspected he was a bit sore for a little while, but there was kind of never really any further information on it. So good to see it was just a 1 week rest. Because I think he's had a super year, and I think it's going to be good for him to round out and finish off his 2025 debut season in the last couple of games. So very excited for that. But looking at the lineup, I mean, the interchange in particular, we've got Harry Armstrong, Taj Houghton, Tom Brown, Camden McIntosh, Luke Traynor. As we all know, that's typically where the sub comes from, although it can come from other places on the ground, but it doesn't usually happen that way. But if you're looking at that list, it seems pretty obvious to me that the sub will be Camden McIntosh. And I think a large part of that might be to get him through till next week as well, if there is any inkling of it being maybe a last game for Camden in round 24, which we haven't heard one way or another on yet. There's just been a few bits and pieces floating around. But from that, I mean, yeah, Harry Armstrong not playing a sub. Taj Houghton definitely not playing a sub. Tom Brown, I mean, I logically don't see why he would play sub. And Luke Traynor, he has played sub in the past, but he's just come off a week off. So I find it very unlikely for him to do that. But this week, with this lineup, again, it probably feels like one of our more experienced lineups. We've obviously got Traynor coming back in who adds a bit more youth. But I do like having up front, being able to have Bolter and Lynch up front as the two big forwards, with Harry Armstrong sort of riding shotgun, getting the third defender. And I actually think that Harry Armstrong will be one to keep an eye out for. He might be able to get off the chain potentially, depending on how well we move the ball and what the matchups look like. But he would be one that I would be looking to try and get a couple of shots through, just because I think he'll have a more favourable matchup than maybe some of the other key forwards. The emergencies, Steely Green, Josh Gibkiss and Jacob Kazitsky. Well done to Cozzy, firstly, for getting his name back up in lights after that monster game in the VFL. However, the only problem I've got with this emergency list is the VFL game is on at the same time as the AFL game in a completely different state. So I don't know if all of them are going to be not playing VFL, if one's going to just not play, if none are going to be there. I really don't know how that's going to work, and that's just some shit scheduling, again, that hasn't worked out well for us, but we'll have to see how we go on that front. We've got Sonzi and Trezise named on the wings, not too bad. Trezise, bit of a down game last week, so looking for him to respond. Jack Ross had probably one of his better games for a while last week, so looking for him to build on that. But it's going to come down to the engine room, like always. Nankervis, Taranto and Hopper, and Prestia up against Big Tristan Sherry, Sheasel, Wardlaw, and LDU. That's where the game's going to be won and lost, so fingers crossed the boys can get the job done in there. But yeah, not too much else on the changes front, just the one for us. I guess if we want to talk about North Melbourne changes, Paul Curtis back in, Simpkin and Whitlock in. So I do want to talk about North Melbourne's changes just quickly. Paul Curtis, Jai Simpkin and Matt Whitlock come in for Hardeman, Teakle and Dersma. Now, the Whitlock one is the one of the most interest given the whole trade scenario that unfolded last year. Now, I will say that in the last 3 or 4 weeks, Whitlock has been kicking multiple goals most games. He's been playing as a forward. So the selection is probably somewhat warranted. However, I do really think that there's an element of them elite trolling levels from North Melbourne playing him in this specific game, given all the talk about it. And I rate it. I'm all here for it. If that's been factored into the thinking, I love it. I reckon that's great. So we'll see how Whitlock goes against the Tigers tomorrow. But they are the changes for this week. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Did we get it right with just the one change? Who do you want to sub? And what do you make of the emergency situation? If you've got any insights there on who might be travelling, who might not be, let us know as well. Because, yeah, I'd be keen to see which one of them is maybe there as a holdover. But that's it. So until tomorrow, when we've got the game day, go Tigers.